A
Hey,
7-year-old girl
buddy,
slept on a
wake up.
stranger's
Hmm.
motorcycle
Are
at
we
dawn,
there?
barefoot,
Almost. Hold on tight now.
bleeding,
Okay.
dreaming of rescue. She'd been running for 6 hours through the coldest April night Portland, Oregon had seen in a decade. Behind her, a building full of hungry children and a man who counted them like inventory. Ahead of her, nothing but hope in the memory of her mother's voice saying, "Motorcycle people are the good ones, baby. They protect people who can't protect themselves." Her name was Wren Calloway, and she was 7 years old and she weighed 42 pounds, and she had not eaten a full meal in 11 days. The last thing her mother ever told her, lying in that hospital bed with tubes running everywhere and machines beeping, their mechanical grief was about the motorcycles. About how, when she was a little girl growing up in Astoria, a group of bikers had found her wandering on the highway after her own father left her at a gas station and drove away. How they wrapped her in a leather jacket that smelled like engine oil and road dust and carried her to safety on the back of a Harley Davidson that rumbled like thunder made gentle. Wren held on to that story the way other children held on to stuffed animals, pressed it against her chest in the dark, replayed it when the closet door locked and the light disappeared and the hours stretched into forever. Motorcycle people are the good ones. So when she ran, when she finally gathered every scrap of courage her small body contained and pushed through the fire exit at 11:40 at night, while Garrett Nolan slept in his office upstairs with the door locked and a bottle of bourbon on his desk, she ran toward motorcycles. Not a police station, not a hospital, not any of the places adults told children to go. When they needed help, because Wren had tried those places and those places had not worked. She ran toward the sound her mother had described, the rumble, the chrome-catching light, the promise that somewhere in this cold and careless city, someone on a motorcycle would see her and choose to care. 6 miles, bare feet on asphalt and concrete and gravel and broken glass, left ankle screaming where she had twisted it jumping from the fire escape ladder, the bottom rung 4 feet higher than a 7-year-old could safely drop. Blood leaving dark prints on the sidewalk behind her like breadcrumbs in a fairy tale nobody was reading. She found the garage on Oakwood Drive at 5:50 in the morning, a detached garage behind a modest house on a quiet street lined with maple trees. The side door was unlocked because this was the kind of neighborhood where people still left doors unlocked, where trust was built over decades of borrowed lawnmowers and returned casserole dishes and waves exchanged across driveways on Sunday mornings. The motorcycle sat in the center of the garage like an altar, a Harley Davidson Road King black and chrome well-maintained loved. Wren could tell it was loved the way she could tell when food was made with care instead of thrown together from obligation. The chrome was polished. The leather seat was worn but clean. Someone had spent hours with this machine, and that someone Wren decided was a good person. Because her mother said so, because she had nothing left to believe in except the word of a dead woman and the shine on a stranger's motorcycle. She climbed onto the seat. It was cold. Everything was cold. The April air cut through her faded blue sweatshirt, 3 sizes too large, stolen from the donation bin at Riverside because her own clothes had been taken away weeks ago as punishment for crying too loud. Gray sweatpants hung from hip bones that jutted like small shelves beneath her skin. No shoes, no socks. Feet that looked like something from a war photograph, cut and swollen and dark with dried blood. Wren curled into the seat the way she had learned to curl into small spaces, made herself as tiny as possible, pulled the sweatshirt over her knees and tucked her ruined feet beneath her and rested her head against the gas tank and closed her eyes. In her dream, the motorcycle man came. He always came in her dreams, tall and strong with a leather vest and kind eyes and a voice that never yelled. He picked her up and put her on the back of his bike, and they rode away from Riverside and the quiet room and the wooden spoon on the kitchen wall and the sound of Garrett Nolan's laughter when children begged for food. In her dream, she was safe. The garage door opened at 6:23 in the morning. Cole Harlan stood in the doorway wearing jeans and a white t-shirt, barefoot on cold concrete, holding a coffee mug he would forget about for the next 16 hours. The April air bit at 42 degrees. Late spring in the Pacific Northwest still carried winter's edge, that particular kind of cold that gets into your bones and stays there like a guest who has overstayed but refuses to leave. He had woken late. Another restless night. Another dream about Eli. Always Eli. 25 years gone this June, and Cole still saw him every time he closed his eyes. blonde hair catching sunlight, blue eyes too big for his small face. 7 years old and already carrying more pain than any child should know how to name. The dreams had been worse lately, more vivid, more urgent, like Eli was trying to tell him something from whatever place the dead go when they leave us behind, and we are too slow or too broken to follow. Cole had planned his morning the way he planned every morning since leaving the Marine Corps 18 years ago. Coffee first, check the bike second, review the work schedule third. He was a construction foreman, had been for 12 years, ran a crew of 18 men building commercial properties across the Portland metro area. Good work, honest work, the kind that let him sleep at night, or at least it used to before the dreams came back with a vengeance that felt less like memory and more like prophecy. He had paid off this house 5 years early, lived alone, never married. The brothers joked about it sometimes, gentle ribbing about the eternal bachelor, but they understood. When you carry certain kinds of guilt, you do not burden another person with it. You just carry it alone and hope the weight does not crush you before you figure out what it means. The house sat on Oakwood Drive in southeast Portland, a quiet street, working-class neighborhood, good people who minded their own business and helped their neighbors when help was needed. Cole had lived here for 14 years, knew everyone on the block by name, waved to Mrs. Alma Pruitt every morning when she walked her terrier past his driveway, borrowed a socket wrench from Tom Johnson across the street, helped the Pratt family 2 doors down rebuild their fence after the winter storms. He walked toward the garage that Sunday morning, thinking about transmission fluid and whether the Road King needed an oil change before the chapter ride next weekend. Practical thoughts, safe thoughts, the kind that kept the memories at bay and the grief locked in the basement of his mind where it belonged. He hit the light switch and his world stopped. A child lay curled on his motorcycle, small body folded into the seat like she had tried to make herself disappear. Blonde hair tangled and dirty catching the overhead bulb's harsh light, faded blue sweatshirt 3 sizes too large, gray sweatpants sliding down narrow hips, no shoes, feet dark with dried blood. For exactly 5 seconds, Cole Harlan could not breathe, could not move, could not process what his eyes were showing him. Eli. But Eli was dead, had been dead for 25 years. Died at 7 years old in a place called Pine Valley Children's Home, while Cole, 18 and powerless, watched the system fail him. Watched the adults who were supposed to protect him look away. Watched his little brother disappear into bureaucracy and neglect until there was nothing left but a small coffin and a headstone that read "Beloved Son" and a silence that lasted a quarter of a century. The child on the motorcycle stirred. The light had woken her. She opened her eyes and Cole felt the ground shift beneath him. Blue. Impossibly blue. The same shade as Eli's. That particular color between sky and ocean that people write poems about but never quite capture because language was not built to hold that kind of beauty. She saw him. Panic flooded her small face. She scrambled backward on the seat and her left ankle buckled beneath her weight. The sound she made was high and terrified. The cry of an animal caught in a trap, knowing the trapper is coming and there is nowhere left to run. "I'm sorry," the words tumbled out fast, desperate, thick with fear and something else. A stutter, words tripping over each other like they had forgotten how to walk in a straight line. "I didn't mean to. Please don't be mad. Please don't call them. I'll go, I'm sorry." Every instinct Cole had learned in the Marine Corps kicked in. Assess, do not react, read the situation, identify threats, protect civilians. He had spent 4 years in the service, 2 tours in Iraq during the surge, came home in 2008 with an honorable discharge and skills he had hoped never to use on American soil. The girl was tiny, maybe 4 feet tall, probably weighed less than 50 pounds, though looking at her now he would revise that estimate downward. The sweatshirt hung past her hands like a dress made for someone 3 times her size. Through the thin fabric, he could see the outline of her ribs, the sharp angles of collarbones that should not be visible on a healthy child. Her feet were a mess, cuts across the soles, some deep enough that blood had soaked through and dried black. Ankles swollen, the left one twice the size of the right. She had been running hard and running far. "Who are you?" Cole kept his voice low. Steady, the same tone he had used talking down scared privates under fire and drunk veterans at bars and wounded dogs on the side of the road. The voice that said, I am not a threat. I am not going to hurt you. You are safe here. The girl tried to get off the bike despite the pain. Her movements were jerky, uncoordinated, driven by fear rather than logic. She was trying to run again even though her feet were shredded and her ankle was the size of a grapefruit and she had nowhere to go. Hey, stop. Cole knelt, dropped from 6'2" to maybe 3 feet, bringing himself below her eye level. Hands visible, open, empty, showing her he was not reaching for her, not trying to grab her, just trying to make himself less frightening to a child who had clearly learned that large men meant pain. You're hurt, let me help. She pressed against the garage wall, back flat against pegboard hung with tools, shaking so hard her teeth chattered, and whether from cold or fear, Cole could not tell. Probably both. I'm not mad. I'm not going to hurt you. What's your name? The question seemed to surprise her, like maybe nobody had asked her name in a long time, like maybe she had become a number or a bed or a problem to be managed rather than a person with a name that someone had chosen with love. She swallowed hard. When she spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. Ren, okay, Ren, why are you in my garage? She looked at the motorcycle. Tears streamed down her dirty face, cutting clean tracks through the grime like rivers through a desert. When she spoke again, her words came out broken, like she had to pull each one from somewhere deep and painful, a well that had almost run dry. I wanted to sleep on the motorcycle. My mom said motorcycle people are good. They protect people. I'm sorry, I'll leave. Something cracked open in Cole's chest, old scar tissue tearing. Memories he had buried so deep he thought they were gone, flooding back with the force of a river breaking through a dam. A kid wanting to sleep on a motorcycle, wanting to feel safe, choosing chrome and leather in the hope of a stranger's kindness over whatever she had left behind. What kind of desperation drives a child to a stranger's garage instead of somewhere safe? He knew the answer. Had lived it. Had watched Eli live it and die from it. You ran away from somewhere. She nodded, could not seem to speak anymore, like she had used up all her words and now only had tears left. From where a whisper, barely audible. Riverside. Cole knew the place. Everyone in Portland knew the place. Riverside Children's Home on Elm Street. Big old building. Formerly a private school, converted to a residential care facility in the 90s. State licensed. Supposedly reputable. One of those places people in the community pointed to with pride. Look what we do for orphans. Look how much we care. The facility on Elm. Another nod. Why did you run, Ren? She looked at his face. Really looked. Seeing past the tattoos that ran from his wrists to his shoulders, past the beard and the early morning roughness and the size of him that should have been terrifying to a child her age and her experience. She saw something there that made her gamble everything on a stranger. You look like my brother. Cole went still. Her voice was small and broken, carrying a weight no 7-year-old should know how to carry. He went away. Everyone goes away, but you have a motorcycle. In my dreams, the motorcycle man saves me. My mom said they protect people. She looked down at her ruined feet. Please don't send me back. The words hit Cole like shrapnel. Brother, motorcycle man, dreams of rescue. Please don't send me back. He stared at the blonde hair, the blue eyes, the age that could not be anything but 7. Eli's age, Eli's coloring, Eli's desperate hope that someone, anyone would see him and choose to help. What's your brother's name? Confusion crossed her face. I don't have a brother. I meant you look like the man in my dreams. The motorcycle man. She flushed embarrassed like she had been caught in a lie that was not a lie but something more fragile. Something she had built in the dark to keep herself alive. I made him up to feel better. He has a motorcycle and he rescues kids. It's stupid. It's not stupid. Cole reached behind him, slowly, telegraphing every movement the way you move around a wounded animal. Ren flinched anyway, small body tensing for a blow, and that told him more than any words could. She was used to being hit, expected it, prepared for it the way you prepare for weather. Not a matter of if, but when and how hard. He pulled off his leather vest. Hell's Angels patches worn smooth from 12 years of wear, still warm from his body heat. The vest that marked him as Sergeant-at-Arms for the Portland chapter. The vest that meant brotherhood and loyalty, in a code that went deeper than any law written on paper. He held it out to her. "You're freezing. Put this on." Wren stared at the vest like it was something holy, did not move, did not reach for it. Like she had learned that gifts came with conditions and kindness came with a price, and nothing was ever free for children like her. "You're not calling them, not unless you want me to." She shook her head. Violent, whole body involved in the negation, every muscle and bone and sinew screaming, "No, then I won't." Why? The question hung in the cold air between them. Why would a stranger help? Why would anyone help when the whole world seemed built on looking away, on filing reports that went nowhere, on trusting the man in charge because he smiled nicely and kept his paperwork clean? Cole felt 25 years of locked grief rising in his throat, felt Eli's ghost standing beside him. 7 years old forever, waiting to see if his big brother had learned anything at all from failing him. Because someone should have helped my little brother. Nobody did. He died. I'm not making that mistake again. Wren's eyes went wide. Your brother Cole nodded, had to force the words past the tightness in his chest that felt like a fist closing around his heart and squeezing. His name was Eli. He was 7. Same age as you. Blonde hair, blue eyes, just like you. What happened to him? Bad place, like where you came from. He died there. Understanding dawned on her small face. The kind of understanding that should not be possible for a child, but was because she had lived through her own version of that darkness and recognized a fellow survivor when she saw one. Two people standing on opposite sides of the same wound, separated by 25 years and connected by the particular grief of knowing that the system built to protect children sometimes devoured them instead. You couldn't save him. Cole felt tears come. First time he had cried about Eli in 25 years. 25 years of holding it together, of carrying guilt like a second skeleton beneath his skin, of waking from dreams where he tried and failed and tried again to pull his little brother out of Pine Valley before it killed him. No, I couldn't. I was 18. I tried, but I couldn't. He set the vest down on the concrete floor between them, giving her the choice, giving her power in a situation where she had had none for so long that she had forgotten what it felt like to decide anything for herself. Then he did something he had not done in years. He sat down fully, legs crossed, going lower than Wren, total submission in body language, showing her that he was not a threat, that she was safe, that she had all the power in this moment. "But I can save you, if you'll let me." Wren was barely breathing. "You want to help me?" Cole's voice broke, cracked right down the middle like a bean that had been holding weight too long. "I've spent 25 years trying to make up for failing my brother. You show up in my garage, same age, same eyes, looking just like him, sleeping on a motorcycle because you dreamed someone would save you. Yeah, I want to help you. I need to help you. What if nobody believes me? Nobody ever believes me." Cole pulled out his phone. Old iPhone, cracked screen, case held together with electrical tape. Working man's phone. Practical. "I'm not nobody. I'm Reaper. I've got 47 brothers who protect people. We're going to make them believe you. How first we're getting you safe, then we're getting you fed, then we're going to hear your story, and then we're going to make sure you never go back there. Ever." Wren's voice was tiny, fragile, like it might break if he said the wrong thing. Promise Cole extended his hand, fist out, the way the brothers greeted each other, the way men made promises that meant something. "I promise, on Eli's memory. Brothers." Wren did not understand, tilted her head, confused. "What's that?" A gentle smile crossed Cole's face, the first real one he had managed in months. "It's how brothers make promises. You bumped my fist." Wren raised her right hand, tiny fist against his scarred knuckles. The touch was feather light, tentative, testing whether this was real or another dream that would dissolve when she woke up. Brothers. Brothers. Cole helped Wren to the house. She would not let the vest leave her shoulders, clutched it like a lifeline, like it was the only thing keeping her from floating away into the cold morning air and disappearing the way children in the system disappeared every day, quietly, without fanfare, without anyone noticing until it was too late. The kitchen was small and clean. Cole lived alone but kept the place maintained. Military habits died hard. Dishes done, counters wiped, floor swept. everything in its place. Order against the chaos that lived inside his head. He got Ren sitting at the table, made hot chocolate the old way, milk and cocoa powder and sugar on the stove, the way his mother used to make it before she died, before the accident that took both parents and left two brothers orphaned, one old enough to fend for himself and one too young to understand why the world had suddenly become so dark. He put bandages on the bleeding feet, working carefully, trying not to cause more pain than necessary. The left ankle was swollen badly, sprained for sure, maybe worse. She needed a doctor, needed x-rays, needed things Cole could not provide in a kitchen at 6:30 in the morning. But first she needed to be warm and fed and safe enough to talk. Ren sipped the hot chocolate, first warm thing in hours, maybe days. Her hands shook holding the mug, and Cole noticed how thin her fingers were. Bird bones, breakable. She started talking, quietly. I've been at Riverside for 6 months, since my mom died. The words came slowly at first, like she was testing them, seeing if Cole would interrupt or dismiss or tell her to stop lying. When he just listened, nodding occasionally, she went faster. Director Nolan, he's not nice. Understatement. Cole recognized it, the way abused children minimize their trauma because the full truth is too big to say out loud. Because saying it all at once would mean admitting that the world is as terrible as they suspect it is, and that is a weight that can break an adult, let alone a child. He locks us up. He doesn't feed us enough. I lost weight. Ren lifted the too large sweatshirt. Cole's jaw clenched until his molars ached, ribs visible through skin, sternum prominent, hip bones jutting like shelf brackets beneath tissue paper. A 7-year-old child should not look like that, should not have countable vertebrae and hollow spaces where flesh should be. He hits us with a wooden spoon if we talk too much or cry, and he locks us in a closet, the quiet room, in the dark, for hours. I was in there for 28 hours once. I counted. Cole wanted to put his fist through a wall, wanted to drive to Riverside right now and introduce Garrett Nolan to the kind of violence he had learned in Fallujah, wanted to make him feel every ounce of fear he had inflicted on children who could not fight back. He did not. He just listened, because that was what Ren needed, someone who would listen without interrupting, without explaining away, without making excuses or asking what she had done to deserve it or suggesting that maybe she was confused. Ren showed him welts on the back of her legs, yellow-green bruises, healing but distinct, clear pattern of something rigid striking soft flesh. The kind of marks that told a story no child should have to tell. This is from 2 weeks ago. I asked for more food at dinner. He hit me 5 times. Then he locked me in the quiet room overnight. Tears streamed down her dirty face. I told teachers. I told the doctor. I told police when the neighbor lady called them. Nobody believed me. They all believed Mr. Nolan because he's a grown-up and he has papers, and I'm just a kid nobody wants. Then Ren did something that changed everything. She reached into the pocket of her oversized sweatshirt and pulled out a phone. Old Nokia flip phone. The kind that stopped it being manufactured a decade ago. No service, could not make calls, battery held together with hope in electrical tape. But it could record. I found this in a donation box. It doesn't make calls, but it can record. Mwah. Cole leaned forward. Ren's voice steadied. Something shifted in her small face. The fear was still there, but underneath it, something harder. Something that looked like determination. Like the decision she had made to record this conversation was the first moment in 6 months where she had felt any power at all, and she wasn't letting go of it. 7 days ago, I heard Mr. Nolan talking on the phone. The air vent goes from my room to his office. Nobody believed me when I told them, so I got proof. She pressed play with fingers that shook. The speaker was tiny, cheap, but the voice came through clear. Greg, I need you to adjust the books again. State audit is in June. The voice was smooth, professional, pleasant, the kind of voice people trusted, the kind that hosted fundraisers and gave speeches at Rotary Club meetings about the importance of caring for vulnerable children. A pause. Another man's voice tinier through the phone speaker. Garrett, we're pushing it. You're taking a lot out. That's nearly half the food budget. Garrett Nolan laughed. Casual, easy, like he was discussing weather or sports scores. These kids eat too much anyway. I cut breakfast to 3 days a week. They were fine. Orphans should be grateful for anything. Another pause. What about that Turner kid? His file says he needs speech therapy. State allocated funds monthly for that. More laughter. He doesn't talk anyway. Why waste the funding? I pocketed that for 6 months. Kid's too damaged for therapy to help. He'll age out in the system. The other voice. Uncertain. Jesus, Garrett. Don't Jesus me. I'm running a business. These kids are revenue streams. The quiet ones like Ren are perfect. They don't complain. Don't cause trouble. State pays top dollar. It's beautiful. The recording ended, silence in the kitchen. Just the hum of the refrigerator and distant traffic and the breathing of a man who had just heard a child's entire world described as a business model. Ren's voice was flat, dead, empty of everything except the truth. He's sending me away in July, to a worse place. He wants my bed for a new kid who makes more. He said I'm too damaged. He said nobody's ever going to want me. Then something extraordinary happened. Ren looked at Cole directly, not the glancing, furtive looks of a frightened child, but the full, steady gaze of someone who had decided to fight. But he's wrong, because I recorded him. And I ran, and I found you, and you said you'd help. So he's wrong about me being damaged. Cole stood up so fast the chair scraped against the floor. Ren flinched at the sudden movement, and he hated that. Hated that she expected violence from every adult in her life. Hated that the flinch was so automatic it was like blinking. Ren looked at me. She looked up. Blue eyes swimming with tears, but underneath them, that new hardness. That steel. You are not damaged. You are the bravest person I have ever met. You survived 6 months of hell. You recorded evidence when nobody would listen. You escaped. You ran barefoot through freezing and cold for 6 miles on a broken ankle to find help. That's not damaged. That's a fighter. But he said he's a liar, and he's about to find out what happens when you hurt kids in this town. Cole knelt in front of Ren, eye level, hands on her small shoulders, gentle but firm, grounding. Ren, I'm making you a promise, a real promise. Not like the ones adults made you and broke. I'm calling my brothers right now, all 47 of them. By noon, they'll be here. We're going to get you to a doctor. We're going to get you safe. And then we're going to take that recording to the police, to lawyers, to anyone who will listen. And if they don't listen, we'll make them listen. Garrett Nolan ends today. You are never going back there. Ever. And I mean that on my brother Eli's grave. Do you understand me? Ren nodded, still crying, but different tears now, not the tears of a child with no hope. The tears of a child who had just been told her hope was not stupid, that the motorcycle man was real, that someone had finally listened and believed her. Cole pulled his dog tags from around his neck. United States Marine Corps, worn every day for 18 years since leaving the service. Scratched, faded, the embossed letters barely legible. But they were his. They meant something. He put them around Ren's neck. These are mine. They mean I keep my word. You hold on to these until I bring you home safe. Ren touched the tags with trembling fingers. Home Cole's voice broke again, shattered into pieces that he would spend years putting back together, and the pieces would never quite fit the same way, and he would be grateful for that. Yeah, kid, home. You're not going to any facility. You're staying with me. If you want to. You want me. The question? Killed him, 7 years old and already believing nobody could want her, already internalizing the message that she was disposable. Revenue stream, damaged goods, a bed to be filled by someone more profitable. The day Eli died, I made a promise I'd never let another kid suffer if I could stop it. You showing up in my garage, that's not coincidence. That's Eli telling me I get a second chance. So yeah, kid, I want you, if you'll have me. Ren launched forward, hugged Cole hard. First hug in 6 months, maybe longer. First safe touch from an adult who was not examining her or documenting her injuries, or asking invasive questions with a clipboard in hand, and sympathy that expired when the shift ended. Please don't let them take me back. Cole wrapped his arms around the tiny girl. This child who looked like Eli, who was his second chance, who was trusting him not to fail the way he had failed before. Never. You're mine now, my daughter, my family. Whatever you need, nobody takes you anywhere. Ren whispered into his shoulder. The motorcycle man. He's real. Cole was crying openly, first time in 25 years, and it felt like rain on parched earth, like something dead inside him was finally being washed clean. Yeah, kid, he's real, and he's not letting you go. Cole stood, pulled out his phone, dialed a number he had called 1,000 times. Two rings, Roach Maddox. The voice on the other end was deep, rough. The sound of a man who had smoked too many cigarettes and lived too many hard years and come out the other side with scar tissue where other people had softness. Roach was 6'5", 280 pounds. Chapter president for 15 years. Lost his nephew to system neglect back in 2016. Kid was 9. Foster care situation gone wrong. Died from injuries nobody investigated until it was too late because the paperwork said everything was fine and nobody looked past the paperwork. Roach did not trust the system. None of them did. It's Reaper. Brother. Early for you. Cole's voice was shaking. Roach heard it immediately. In 15 years of riding together through bar fights and funerals and road trips, in the quiet moments between, he had never heard Cole's voice shake. I need every member within 50 miles of my house. Now, silence. 3 seconds. Then Roach's voice changed. All business. The president's voice. The one that moved 47 men like a single organism. What's going on? I found a kid, Roach. She looks like Eli. She's 7. She ran from Riverside Children's home barefoot in the cold because the director's been starving her, hitting her, locking her in closets, pocketing the funding meant to care for her. And the kids got it recorded. All of it. His voice, his words. We're not waiting for the cops to take their time on this one. Another pause. Longer. When Roach spoke again, his voice was granite. How fast can you get her safe? She's safe now. She's with me. Good. A beat. We ride in 1 hour. Nobody touches your girl. The line went dead. Cole looked at Ren. She was watching him with wide eyes, the hot chocolate forgotten on the table. The vest still wrapped around her shoulders like armor, his dog tags hanging against her chest like a promise made visible. You ever see a lot of motorcycles at once? She shook her head. You're about to. 47 minutes later, the rumble started. Ren was in Cole's living room by then, clean, showered, wearing one of his old Marine PT shirts that hung to her knees like a dress. The shower had been difficult. She had been terrified of the bathroom, of closed doors, of being locked in. Cole had stood outside the whole time, door open, talking to her through the steam, so she knew he was there. So she knew she was not trapped. Ankle wrapped now, feet bandaged, hot chocolate replaced with toast and scrambled eggs that she had eaten too fast like she expected someone to take the food away. Cole had to tell her to slow down, gentle, explaining that there was more if she wanted it, that food was not a weapon here, that she could eat until she was full and then eat again if she was still hungry, that nobody in this house would ever punish her for being hungry. The sound began low, distant, like thunder rolling in from the coast. Then it grew and grew and grew until the windows vibrated and the dishes in the cabinet hummed and the floor itself seemed to pulse with the heartbeat of 47 Harley-Davidson engines converging on a quiet street in southeast Portland. Cole walked to the window. Ren followed, limping but curious. The vest dragged on the floor behind her, too big, but she would not take it off. Could not take it off. It was the first thing anyone had given her in 6 months that did not come with conditions. The street was filling with motorcycles. 1, 12, 20. They parked in formation. Tight, disciplined. Riders dismounting in near silence despite the size of the machines. Harleys mostly. Road kings and street glides and fat boys. Chrome catching morning light like a row of mirrors reflecting the sun. Leather and denim and patches that marked them as brothers. By 8:30:47, motorcycles lined Oakwood Drive. Neighbors came to windows. Stared. Mrs. Alma Pruitt stood on her porch with her terrier hand over her mouth. The Johnsons across the street filmed on their phones. 2 houses down, someone called the cops probably, but that was fine. Let them come, let everyone see. Ren pressed against Cole's side. Are they mad? No, kid, they're here for you. The front door opened. Roach walked in first, had to duck under the frame. 6'5" meant most doorways were obstacles. Behind him came the others, one by one. filling Cole's small living room with leather vests and tattooed arms and beards and scarred faces. Men who looked dangerous because they were, but who channeled that danger into protection instead of destruction. Roach looked at Wren. His expression softened immediately. This giant of a man, this president of one of the most notorious motorcycle clubs in the country. He knelt down, and even on his knees, he was still taller than Wren. "Hey there, I'm Roach." Wren's voice was barely audible. "You're really big." A smile broke across Roach's weathered face. "Yeah, but I'm really gentle. Your name's Ren Nod. Cole called us because he says you need help. Is that true?" Another nod. "Okay, we're going to help. But we need to know what happened. Can you tell us?" Ren looked at Cole, seeking permission, seeking safety, the look of a child who had learned to check with adults before speaking, because speaking without permission meant the quiet room. Cole nodded. "It's okay, they're safe." So Ren told the story again, slower this time. More details. 6 months at Riverside Children's Home. Director Nolan. Locked dormitories. One bathroom for 9 kids. Broken heater. Food locked in pantry with a combination lock only Nolan knew. Wooden spoon hanging on the kitchen wall. The quiet room. 28 hours in the dark. 112 times through the alphabet. The room was silent except for Ren's small voice. 47 men listening, jaws clenched, hands curled into fists. But nobody moved, nobody shouted, nobody interrupted. When she mentioned the recording, every head turned. "Can we hear it?" Roach's voice was gentle, but his eyes were not. His eyes were the eyes of a man who had lost his nephew to a system that looked away and had spent every day since then making sure he never looked away himself. Ren played it. The men listened. The smooth professional voice of Garrett Nolan talking about revenue streams and damaged kids and pocketing therapy funds. Talking about Ren like she was livestock. Inventory. Product. When it ended, Roach stood, looked around the room at his brothers, all in favor of full mobilization. For a moment, nothing. Just the ticking of the clock on the wall and distant traffic outside, and the collective breathing of 47 men making a decision. Then every single hand went up. Not a moment's hesitation. Not a single dissenting voice. 47 men voting unanimously to help a girl they had just met because she had been brave enough to run and smart enough to bring proof and desperate enough to trust strangers because every institution designed to help her had failed. Roach nodded. "Reaper, your point on this. What do you need?" Cole had spent the last hour thinking about exactly this, about what Ren needed, about what would hold up in court, about how to make sure this time the system worked. "Shepard, I need emergency custody paperwork filed." A man stepped forward. Shepard Klein, 49 years old, actual family law attorney, 23 years practicing. He had joined the club in his 30s after his daughter died in a custody dispute gone wrong. Judge ruled against him. Ex-wife's boyfriend was the danger. Daughter paid the price. Shepard spent his days in courtrooms fighting for kids nobody else wanted to fight for. "I'll have an emergency custody petition filed within 90 minutes. We'll get a hearing scheduled for tomorrow." Cole continued. "Tessa, I need a full medical exam, documented, photographs, everything." Dr. Tessa Rourke stepped forward. 47 years old, nurse practitioner, specializing in pediatrics. Worked at a manual hospital during the week. Rode with the club on weekends. Her sister had died in foster care in the 80s. Some wounds never healed, but you could at least make sure nobody else got the same ones. "I'll examine her here. Document everything. Medical affidavit for court. Body. I need that recording extracted and certified. Body Sims, 34, IT specialist. Computer forensics, ex-Army military intelligence. Ran a cybersecurity consultancy for half the law firms in Portland. Knew how to make digital evidence admissible in ways that defense attorneys could not challenge. Give me the phone, I'll have certified copies within the hour. Dutton, I need you to make calls. Police, child services, media if necessary." If Dutton Harlan stepped forward last. 68 years old, Cole's uncle, chapter founder. Started the Portland chapter in 1991 after coming back from the Gulf War with nothing but a motorcycle and a belief that brotherhood mattered. Retired mechanic now, but still sharp, still connected, still the moral center of the chapter. The man the brothers turned to when they needed not just direction, but conscience. He had known Eli, had been at the funeral, had watched Cole carry guilt for 25 years, and had carried his own share of it because Dutton was the one who had told 18-year-old Cole to trust the system. Let the process work. They're professionals. They know what they're doing. The worst advice he had ever given, and he had spent a quarter century trying to make up for it. Dutton looked at Wren, then at Cole. His voice was thick with something that had been waiting 25 years to be said. Eli sent you this girl. Take care of her the way you couldn't take care of Eli. This is your second chance. Don't waste it. Cole nodded, could not speak. Roach addressed the room. We do this right. Legal, clean, no mistakes, because if we mess this up, Wren goes back. Understood, 46 voices in unison. Understood. Then let's move. The next 6 hours were a blur of coordinated efficiency that would have impressed any military commander. Dr. Tessa Rourke examined Wren and Cole's bedroom. Gentle, thorough, professional. She documented everything with the clinical detachment of someone who had seen too much abuse but still cared deeply. Weight 42 pounds, should be 48 to 52 for age 7. Severe malnutrition, height 3 feet 9 inches, small for age. Bruising, yellow-green contusion on left cheek approximately 1 week old. Multiple small welts on posterior thighs consistent with being struck with rigid object. Feet, multiple lacerations from running barefoot on pavement. Some embedded gravel removed and cleaned. Ankle, grade 2 sprain, left ankle. Significant swelling. Speech, severe delay. Speaks at approximately 3-year-old level despite chronological age of 7. Stutters under stress. History per patient indicates normal speech development until 6 months ago. She took photographs, measured, made notes. Her face was professionally blank, but her hands shook slightly when she helped Wren back into the oversized shirt. You're going to be okay, sweetheart. You're safe now. Body worked on the recording at Cole's kitchen table. Laptop open, cables running to the Nokia phone. He extracted the audio file, made 5 certified copies, timestamped them. Verified the metadata showing recording date 7 days prior. Burned copies to disk, uploaded to a secure server. Created chain of custody documentation that would hold up in any courtroom in the country. This is admissible. Clear audio, identifiable voices, no evidence of tampering. Any decent prosecutor can work with this. Shepard was on his phone for 2 straight hours, filing petitions, calling in favors, scheduling emergency hearings, using every connection he had built over 23 years of family law practice. Hearing set for tomorrow morning. 9 a.m., Judge Adele Whitmore presiding. She's fair. She'll listen. Meanwhile, 38 brothers split into teams and knocked on every door within 2 blocks of Riverside Children's Home. Systematic. Thorough. Looking for anyone who had seen something. Anyone who might have noticed but not reported. Anyone who could serve as witness. They found Mrs. Alma Pruitt at house number 14. 68 years old, retired teacher, lived next door to Riverside for 12 years. Watched children come and go through that building for more than a decade. Seen things that troubled her. Made calls that went nowhere. She opened the door and saw the leather vest. Started to close it. Ma'am, we're not here to cause trouble. We're here about the children at Riverside. We think something's wrong there. Did you ever notice anything? Mrs. Pruitt's face crumpled. She invited them in, sat them down in a living room full of doilies and photographs of grandchildren and the comfortable clutter of a life well lived. The living room of a woman who baked cookies for neighbors and volunteered at church rummage sales and believed fundamentally in the goodness of her community, even when that belief required looking past things that should not be looked past. I saw that little girl, Wren. I saw her crying at the window so many times, pressed against the glass. I could see her from my kitchen, 30 feet away. I called police twice. They came, looked around. Director Nolan showed them clean rooms, happy children, meal logs. They left, said everything was fine. She was crying now, hands shaking in her lap. I should have done more. I should have broken down that door myself. I'm 68 years old. I have nothing to lose. And I let fear of getting involved stop me from saving a child 30 feet from my own house. I'll never forgive myself. Would you be willing to testify to what you saw? Yes, Anything. Please, I should have spoken up sooner. I can speak up now. They found 3 more. Dr. Grant Holloway, 44, pediatrician, private practice in Southeast Portland. Saw Wren twice over 6 months for routine checkups required by state law for children in residential care. Each visit she was thinner, bruises she couldn't explain. She stopped speaking entirely by the second visit. I documented everything. I called child services twice. They said the facility was licensed. Nolan had explanations, budget constraints, behavioral issues, adjustment difficulties. I accepted that. I'm a doctor. My job is to protect children. I saw the signs, and I didn't fight hard enough. Officer Dean Lacey, 38, Portland Police Department Patrol Division, responded to 2 calls about Riverside over the past 6 months, both times from Mrs. Pruitt reporting a child in distress at the window. We went in, director showed us around, clean facility. Kids seemed fine, meal logs all in order. Everything looked good on paper. We didn't push. We didn't ask to see Wren specifically. We took the word of the man in charge. If I'd spent 10 more minutes, asked 5 more questions, maybe she doesn't run barefoot through freezing cold. Wrong call. My wrong call. Joanna Vick, 41, Child Protective Services caseworker. Conducted 2 welfare checks at Riverside over 4 months in response to reports from Dr. Holloway. I saw thin children. I saw fear in their eyes. No one had explanations for everything. Budget constraints, grief behaviors, trauma responses from losing parents. I wrote reports that said facility meets standards. I was carrying 43 active cases. I prioritized paperwork over instinct. A 7-year-old ran away barefoot because the system I represent failed her. By 5 in the afternoon, they had everything. 4 witness statements, 1 medical affidavit, 1 certified audio recording, 1 emergency custody petition, 1 CPS report documenting systemic failures, and 47 bikers ready to make sure the system listened this time. Roach gathered everyone back at Cole's house. Wren was asleep on the couch by then, dog tags still around her neck. Cole's vest still wrapped around her like a blanket. Exhausted from the day, from the fear from finally being somewhere safe enough to let her guard down for the first time in 6 months. Roach spoke quietly so he would not wake her. We go tomorrow. Courthouse, 9 a.m., all of us. We fill that courtroom. We show that judge this kid has a family. 46 nods. Good. Get rest. Tomorrow, we make sure Wren never goes back. One by one, the brothers left, motorcycles starting up, rumbling away into the evening. Neighbors watched from windows, still uncertain what they had witnessed, but sensing it was something important, something that mattered. Cole sat beside Wren on the couch, watched her sleep. 7 years old and already carrying scars most people never knew, but alive, safe, here. He thought about Eli, about all the ways he had failed, about the promise he had made at a funeral 25 years ago that he would never let another child suffer if he could stop it. Maybe this was how you kept that promise, not by saving everyone, not by turning back time, but by showing up when it mattered, by listening when a child spoke, by believing when everyone else dismissed. Wren stirred in her sleep, reached for the tags at her neck, held them tight. Cole pulled a blanket over her, tucked it around the small shoulders, made sure she was warm. His phone buzzed. Text from Shepard. Nolan has hired legal counsel Thomas Voss of Voss and Associates. They're preparing to file a counterclaim. Interference with legal custody, possibly kidnapping. They're going to try to take her back. Cole stared at the message, then at Wren, sleeping peacefully for maybe the first time in months. Trusting him, depending on him. He typed back, let them try. Then he set the phone down and sat in the dark and watched over his daughter. Because that was what she was now, not on paper, not yet, but in every way that mattered, in the way that a man who had failed one child could look at another and say, not again, not this time, not while I'm still breathing. She was his. Tomorrow they would go to court. Tomorrow they would face Garrett Nolan and his lawyers and a system built on bureaucracy and skepticism and the presumption that men in suits were more trustworthy than men in leather. Tomorrow they would fight for a little girl who had run through the cold because nobody else would listen. But tonight she was safe. She was home. She was his. And that was enough. Monday morning arrived cold and clear. April 29th, 24 hours since Cole found Ren in his garage. 24 hours that had cracked open a life he thought was sealed shut and poured something into it that felt terrifyingly close to purpose. The sun rose at 6:14, painting Portland's east side in pale gold light that made the wet streets shine like polished brass. Cole had been awake for 2 hours already, had not really slept. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Ren's face superimposed over Eli's. Two children, same age, same need, separated by 25 years, and a chance that felt less like luck and more like providence. Ren was still asleep in the guest bedroom, the room that had been storage until 2 in the morning when Cole cleared it out in silence, working by the light of his phone, moving boxes of old Marine Corps gear and construction equipment catalogs into the garage. He set up the twin bed he had bought from Mrs. Pruitt's grandson 5 years ago and never used. Fresh sheets, blue blanket, window that opened, door that would never lock from the outside. She had woken once around 4, crying, tangled in nightmare. Cole had sat beside her bed until she fell back asleep, hand on her small shoulder, grounding her, reminding her she was not in the quiet room, was not at Riverside, was somewhere safe. He did not say anything, did not need to. Just being there, just the weight of a hand that would not hit was enough. At 7:30, Roach called. We're rolling at 8:15, formation at the corner of Oakwood and Division. We ride in together. Cole could hear engines in the background. Brothers warming up bikes, checking oil levels, the ritual preparation before something important. Understood. How's the girl? Scared, but ready. Good, we'll be there. Cole made breakfast, scrambled eggs, toast, orange juice. The kind of breakfast that took 5 minutes to prepare and meant everything to a child who had eaten rice and beans 3 times a day for 6 months when she was lucky enough to eat it all. He called Ren gently from the bedroom. She appeared in the doorway wearing the same oversized Marine PT shirt, hair tangled from sleep, eyes wide and uncertain, the dog tags catching light at her chest. Morning, kid, you hungry? She nodded, sat at the table, ate slowly this time, not the desperate gulping from yesterday, learning that food would still be there, that she could take her time, that nobody was going to snatch the plate away or hit her for wanting more. We're going to court this morning, all of us. The brothers are coming. We're going to tell a judge what happened to you. Ren's hand froze halfway to her mouth, fork trembling. Will Mr. Nolan be there? Probably. I don't want to see him, I know. But we need to show the judge you're telling the truth, and I'll be right there. Roach will be there, all 47 brothers. He can't hurt you anymore. What if she doesn't believe me? Cole knelt beside her chair, eye level, the position he always took with her, because standing over a child who had been beaten by tall men was cruelty disguised as conversation. Then we keep fighting, but Ren, listen to me. Judge Whitmore is fair. She's been doing this for 22 years. She's seen everything, and she's going to see you. Really see you, and she's going to know you're telling the truth. How do you know? Because I've spent my whole life reading people, knowing who to trust and who to watch. And I'm telling you, we've got a good judge. We've got evidence. We've got witnesses. We've got a recording in Nolan's own voice. This isn't like before when you tried to tell people and they didn't listen. This time they're going to listen. Ren picked up the dog tags from where they rested against her chest, held them tight like a rosary. You promise, I promise. Aye. At 8:15, the rumble started again. This time Ren was ready for it. Stood at the window and watched 47 motorcycles arrive in formation, parking with military precision along Oakwood Drive. Roach at the front, Dutton beside him. The rest falling into place like they had practiced it, which they had countless times over the years, for funerals and protests and moments that required the club to show up as one unified presence. Mrs. Alma Pruitt came out of her house dressed in a navy blue pantsuit, Sunday church clothes worn on a Monday because this mattered. She walked over to Cole's porch. I'm coming too, if that's all right. Cole shook her hand. We'd be honored. More neighbors appeared. The Johnsons from across the street, the Pratts from 2 doors down. People who had lived on this block for decades, who had watched Cole come and go, who had seen the commotion yesterday and wanted to understand. Word had spread the way it does in working-class neighborhoods where people actually talk to each other, over fences and on porches and through phone calls that started with, "You won't believe what's happening on Oakwood." By 8:30, 20 civilians were ready to follow 47 motorcycles to the courthouse. Roach approached the porch, looked at Wren. "You ready, little sister?" She nodded. Cole had found her clothes that fit better. Small jeans from a donation run Dr. Tessa Rourke had brought over last night. A purple t-shirt, sneakers that were close to the right size. Her hair was clean and braided. Dutton's wife had done it that morning, gentle hands working through tangles while telling Wren about her own daughter grown now, safe now, but who had needed help once too. Roach held out his hand. Wren took it, small fingers disappearing in his massive palm. "Let's go show them who you are." The ride to Multnomah County Courthouse took 17 minutes. 47 motorcycles moving through Portland's morning traffic and formation. Perfect pace. Steady. Cars pulled aside. People filmed from sidewalks. The sound was massive, unavoidable. A rolling thunder that announced something important was happening, and the city was going to have to pay attention, whether it wanted to or not. Cole rode with Wren in his truck. Could not put her on a bike. Not with that ankle. Not without proper gear. But she watched through the window as the motorcycles surrounded them. Protective. Purposeful. They're like knights. Wren's voice was small but awed. Like in the stories. Cole smiled. First smile that felt real and longer than he could remember. Yeah, kind of like that. The courthouse parking lot filled with chrome and leather. 47 bikes parking one by one in the overflow section. Engines cutting off almost in unison. The sudden silence after all that noise felt heavy, expectant, like the building itself was holding its breath. Security at the entrance tensed. Hands moved toward radios. 3 armed guards watching 47 bikers approach in disciplined rows. 200 pounds of leather and chrome per man, walking toward metal detectors. Roach walked point, hands visible, open, non-threatening. Stopped 10 feet from the entrance. "We're here for a custody hearing. Courtroom 4B, Judge Whitmore." 9 o'clock. The lead guard, a man named Patterson, who had worked courthouse security for 15 years and had seen everything from fistfights to bomb threats, looked past Roach at the sea of patches and beards and tattoos. "All of you, yes, sir. We're family." Patterson hesitated, checked his roster, looked at the line of people waiting to enter his courthouse, looked back at Roach. Harlan custody petition. Harlan versus state. That's right. A long look. Assessment. Decision. Metal detectors. Single file. No exceptions. Understood. They filed through security. Patient. Respectful. Removing wallets. Keys, belts. Pocket knives. No complaints. No attitude. Just 47 men who understood that showing respect to process was part of winning. That you did not fight the system by giving it reasons to dismiss you. By 8:40, courtroom 4B was standing room only. Wren sat in the front row between Cole and Dutton. Shepard Klein sat beside them, briefcase open documents, organized in neat stacks that represented months of other people's failures condensed into legal arguments. Behind them, 46 brothers filled every bench. Mrs. Pruitt sat in the second row, Dr. Holloway and Officer Lacey beside her. Joanna Vick in the third row alone, separated from her CPS colleagues who had chosen not to come. The bailiff entered at 8:55, looked at the packed courtroom, at 47 bikers standing at attention, at one small girl in the front row wearing dog tags and looking terrified. All rise. Everyone stood, in unison. The sound of that synchronized movement was like a physical force. Like the building itself was responding to the presence of 47 men who had decided together that one child's life was worth showing up for. Judge Adele Whitmore entered through the side door, 58 years old, 22 years on the bench. She had seen everything the family court system could throw at a person. Child abuse cases, custody battles, parents fighting over children like property. She had made hundreds of decisions, some good, some bad. Some she still thought about late at night when sleep would not come, and the faces of children she had failed floated up from wherever she kept them during daylight hours. 10 years ago, she had denied an emergency custody petition, ruled that the evidence was insufficient, sent a child back to a situation that looked fine on paper. 2 weeks later, that child died from injuries sustained in the home. Injuries that had been there all along, hidden, unreported, dismissed. Judge Whitmore had carried that failure ever since, became more careful, more thorough, more willing to trust instinct over paperwork. Because paperwork could be falsified, but the look in a child's eyes could not. She looked at the packed courtroom now, at 47 bikers in disciplined silence, at the small girl in the front row who could not weigh more than 50 pounds. Her expression did not change. Professional, neutral, but her jaw tightened. Slightly. Be seated. Everyone sat. In unison. Judge Whitmore reviewed her docket, reading glasses perched on her nose, gray hair pulled back in a neat bun, black robe making her seem both formal and formidable. We're here on emergency petition for temporary custody. Case number 24JV08847. Petitioner Cole Harlan seeking emergency custody of minor child Wren Calloway, currently resident of Riverside Children's Home. She looked up at Shepard. Mr. Klein, you're representing Mr. Harlan. Yes, Your Honor. This is highly irregular. Emergency custody petitions typically take weeks to process. You filed this yesterday afternoon and requested an immediate hearing. What's the emergency? Your Honor, may I approach with the evidence? Proceed. Shepard walked forward, handed up a manila folder thick enough to represent everything that had gone wrong in Wren Calloway's life and everything that was being done to make it right. Judge Whitmore opened it, started reading. The courtroom was silent, just the rustle of papers, the tick of the clock on the wall. 47 men breathing in collective tension. 3 minutes. Judge Whitmore read without expression. When she finished, she looked at Shepard. Mr. Klein, this folder contains a medical affidavit documenting severe malnutrition and evidence of physical abuse. It also contains a certified audio recording and 4 sworn witness statements from individuals who observed signs of neglect and reported same to authorities with no meaningful response. Yes, Your Honor. Where is the minor child now? In the courtroom, Your Honor. Front row. Judge Whitmore looked at Wren, really looked, saw the small frame, the nervous hands clutching dog tags, the way she pressed against Cole's side seeking protection, the way a small animal seeks the shelter of a larger one when predators are near. Young lady, can you stand? Please. Wren stood, shaking slightly. Cole put a hand on her shoulder, steadying. What's your name? Wren Calloway. Judge Whitmore's voice softened. Not much, but enough to notice. Wren, my name is Judge Whitmore. I'm here to make sure you're safe. Do you understand? A small nod. Are you safe right now with Mr. Harlan? Has Mr. Harlan hurt you or scared you in any way? No, he helped me. Okay, you can sit down, sweetheart. Wren sat. Cole squeezed her shoulder gently. Judge Whitmore looked at the courtroom, at the 47 men sitting in absolute silence. Mr. Harlan, would you approach the bench? Cole stood, walked forward. 6'2", 200 pounds. Tattooed forearms visible below rolled sleeves. Every inch the dangerous man he had been trained to be, but moving carefully, respectfully, showing the judge he understood the gravity of this moment. Mr. Harlan, the courtroom is rather full today. Are all these individuals here for you? Yes, Your Honor. They're my brothers, Hell's Angels. Portland chapter. A slight pause. Judge Whitmore had been on the bench long enough to have preconceptions about motorcycle clubs. But she had also been on the bench long enough to know that preconceptions could be dead wrong. And they're here because Wren needs to know she has a family, that she's not alone anymore. Judge Whitmore studied Cole's face, looking for deception, for manipulation, for the signs of someone trying to game the system. She did not find them. Mr. Harlan, I've read the medical report. I've read the witness statements. I'm going to listen to this recording in chambers. But I need to ask you directly. What is your relationship to this child? Cole chose his words carefully. I found her in my garage yesterday morning, Your Honor. Barefoot, injured, terrified. She'd run from Riverside because she couldn't survive there anymore. She's 7 years old, same age my brother was when he died in a facility just like that one. His voice caught, steadied. I didn't save Eli, but I can save Wren. And I will. You understand the responsibility you're taking on? Yes, Your Honor. I'm employed. Construction foreman. 12 years with the same company. I own my home. No debt. Clean record. Shepard stepped forward. Your Honor, background check is in the packet. Mr. Harlan is an honorably discharged Marine Corps veteran. No criminal history, stable employment. He's prepared to provide housing, education, medical care, and therapeutic support. Judge Whitmore looked back at Wren. The girl was watching Cole with complete trust. The kind of trust that could not be faked or manufactured or coached. The kind that came from the bone-deep recognition that this person will not hurt me, and there was no courtroom technique in the world that could replicate it. I'm going to adjourn for 30 minutes to review this evidence in chambers. Bailiff, please notify me when Director Nolan from Riverside Children's Home arrives. He was subpoenaed to appear at 9:30. She stood. Everyone rose. She walked out. The 30 minutes felt like 30 hours. Cole sat with Wren, holding her hand, feeling her small fingers tremble in his palm. Roach stood behind them, solid presence. The brothers waited in silence. Patient, disciplined. At 9:28, the side door opened. Garrett Nolan walked in, 51 years old, 5'10", thin build, wearing khakis and a button-down shirt, wire-rimmed glasses, pleasant smile. He looked like every middle manager in America, like someone you would trust to handle your taxes or manage your retirement fund. Harmless, professional, safe. That was his armor, not leather and chrome, not brotherhood and loyalty, but the appearance of decency, the performance of care, the smile that said, trust me, and the paperwork that said, see, everything is fine. He saw Wren in the front row, and his smile widened, friendly, concerned. The mask so practiced it was almost indistinguishable from the real thing. Wren, there you are. We've been so worried about you. Wren shrank into Cole's side. Her whole body went rigid, every muscle locking. The way a rabbit freezes when a hawk's shadow passes overhead. Not flight, not fight, surrender. The body's last defense when both running and fighting have been beaten out of you. Nolan approached, slow, gentle. The way you would approach a frightened animal if you wanted the animal to come to you and not the audience to see you as the threat. Come on, sweetheart. It's okay. You're safe now. We can go home. Cole stood, stepped between Nolan and Wren, blocked his line of sight completely, his body a wall between predator and prey. She's not going anywhere with you. Nolan's smile never wavered. Perfect. Practiced. And you are the man who found her barefoot and bleeding because she'd rather freeze in a stranger's garage than spend one more night under your care. Nolan turned to the bailiff. Reasonable, rational, the voice of authority addressing authority. Officer, this man appears to be interfering with my legal custody of a minor in my care. The bailiff looked uncomfortable, started to respond. All rise. Judge Whitmore had returned. Everyone stood. She sat. Everyone else sat. Her face was stone. Mr. Nolan, you're the director of Riverside Children's Home. Nolan stood, respectful, deferential. Every gesture calibrated to communicate competence and concern. Yes, Your Honor, for 8 years. Are you aware that Wren Calloway ran away from your facility 2 days ago? I am, Your Honor. We've been searching frantically. I'm relieved she's been found safe. Mr. Nolan, I've just spent 28 minutes listening to a recording. Would you like to hear it? His pleasant expression did not change, but something shifted behind his eyes, the slightest flicker of calculation. A man running through possibilities, assessing damage, preparing to pivot. I'm not sure what you mean. Your Honor, she pressed play on her laptop. The courtroom speakers brought his voice to life. Clear, unmistakable. These kids eat too much anyway. I cut breakfast to 3 days a week. They're fine. Orphans should be grateful for anything. He doesn't talk anyway. Why waste the funding? I pocketed that for 6 months. Kids too damaged for therapy to help. These kids are revenue streams. The quiet ones like Wren are perfect. They don't complain, don't cause trouble. State pays top dollar. It's beautiful. The color drained from Nolan's face, that pleasant smile finally cracking like thin ice over deep water. Real emotion showing through for the first time. Fear. Judge Whitmore stopped the playback. Mr. Nolan, is that your voice? Silence. The kind that fills a room when truth has been spoken and lies have nowhere left to hide. Mr. Nolan, I asked you a question. Your Honor, I can explain. That recording is taken out of context. I'm sure you can, but not here. Bailiff, please contact Portland Police. and request officers to this courtroom immediately. The bailiff moved to his radio. Nolan stood. Your Honor, this is a misunderstanding. Sit down, Mr. Nolan. He sat. Judge Whitmore turned to the courtroom, to Cole, to Wren, to the 47 men who had shown up to bear witness to what one child had endured and what one community had decided to do about it. I'm granting emergency temporary custody to Mr. Harlan, effective immediately. Wren Calloway is not to return to Riverside Children's Home under any circumstances. Child Protective Services will conduct a full investigation of the facility within 24 hours. All children currently in residence will be examined by medical professionals and interviewed separately from facility staff. She looked at Wren. Young lady, you're going to stay with Mr. Harlan until we sort this out properly. Is that acceptable to you? Wren nodded, started crying, not from fear this time, from something she had almost forgotten existed, relief. The feeling of being believed. You were very brave, Wren. What you did recording that conversation, running away, asking for help, that took more courage than most adults will ever have. I'm proud of you. Portland police arrived 12 minutes later. 2 officers, uniforms crisp, expressions neutral but alert. They walked in expecting trouble with bikers. Instead, found a courtroom full of silent men watching a middle-aged director being read his rights. Garrett David Nolan, you're under arrest for felony child endangerment, embezzlement of state funds, and fraud. You have the right to remain silent. Nolan started to protest, stopped when he saw the 47 faces watching him. Not angry, not violent, just watching, bearing witness, making sure he knew that people saw him now, that his crimes had witnesses, that the pleasant smile and the clean paperwork would never be enough again. The officers handcuffed him, led him toward the exit. As he passed Wren's row, Nolan leaned slightly, mouth opening, something cruel forming on his lips. Dutton Harlan stood up, did not say a word, just stood, all 6'1", 190 pounds of him. Gulf War veteran who had seen real evil and knew how to confront it without flinching and without violence. Sometimes presence was enough. Sometimes the simple act of a man standing up and saying with his body, I see you and I will not let you, was more powerful than any fist. Nolan shut his mouth, kept walking. The courtroom doors closed behind him. After they left, Judge Whitmore addressed Cole. Mr. Harlan, I'm scheduling a full custody hearing for 3 weeks from today. Between now and then, you'll need to complete a home study background check, parenting classes, and psychiatric evaluation. Are you prepared to do that? Yes, Your Honor. Good. Because this child has been through hell. She needs stability, structure, love. Can you provide that? Cole looked at Wren. She was still holding the dog tags, still wearing tears on her cheeks like medals. Yes, Your Honor, I can. Then I'll see you back here in 3 weeks. Court is adjourned. They walked out of the courthouse at 10:40. Morning light had shifted from gold to white, the kind of clean Pacific Northwest light that made everything look sharp and new. Local news had arrived, cameras everywhere, reporters shoving microphones forward, questions overlapping into incomprehensible noise. Roach stepped forward instead of Cole, calm, clear. The voice of someone who understood that this moment would be played on screens across the city and maybe further, and that what he said mattered not just for Wren, but for every child watching who needed to know that someone would come. We're not heroes. We're just people who saw a kid in trouble and decided to help. The real hero is Wren. She saved herself. She was brave enough to run, brave enough to record evidence when no adult would listen. We just made sure the system finally paid attention. What about the other children at Riverside? CPS is investigating as we speak. Every child will be examined. Every report will be reviewed. What message do you have for people watching? Roach looked directly at the camera. Portland morning light catching the gray in his beard and the scars on his knuckles and the patches on his vest. Pay attention. Listen when a child hesitates. Ask the uncomfortable questions. Because Wren tried to tell 4 different adults what was happening. 4 different people who had the power to help. And they all walked away. Don't be that person. Care enough to intervene even when your voice shakes. By noon, the story was everywhere. Local news, state news, national by evening. By 3 in the afternoon, Child Protective Services had arrived at Riverside with police escort. They found exactly what Wren had described. 9 children in one dormitory, beds too close together, room too cold, broken heater that had not worked in months, windows painted shut, fire code violation, bathroom door hanging crooked on broken hinges, kitchen pantry locked with a combination lock. Only Nolan had known the code. Food supplies minimal. Expired bread, rice, beans, nothing fresh, nothing resembling the balanced meals the state funding was supposed to provide. The quiet room, 5 by 5 feet, supply closet converted to punishment cell, no windows, no light, lock on the outside, scratches on the inside of the door where small hands had clawed trying to get out. Wren's hands, other children's hands, marks left by fingernails that should have been tracing letters in coloring books and instead were scraping wood in darkness. Children interviewed separately, away from the facility, in safe spaces with trained counselors. Stories matched, locked in at night, meals skipped, wooden spoon on the wall, quiet room for crying, average weight below 5th percentile for age. 3 children with untreated medical conditions. 1 boy, 8 years old, with an infected tooth abscess, mouth swollen, pain obvious. No treatment because Nolan said dental work was not covered by basic funding. 1 girl, 6, with chronic ear infection, pulling out her ear, crying, told repeatedly to stop complaining. 1 boy, 9, with vision so poor he could not see the chalkboard at school, except he had not been to school in 4 months because Nolan claimed homeschool was more appropriate. No curriculum provided, no teacher, just isolation. By 6 in the evening, all 9 children were removed, emergency foster placements arranged, medical evaluations scheduled, trauma counselors assigned. By 9, the state had suspended Riverside's license pending full investigation. But the investigation found something else. Body Sims had kept digging. He was not the kind of man who stopped when the surface problem was solved. Army intelligence had trained him to follow trails, and trails had a way of leading places nobody expected. He worked through the night after the hearing. Coffee and energy drinks keeping him sharp. Following digital breadcrumbs the way he had once followed communications intercepts in a desert on the other side of the world. State funding to Riverside, $3,400 per month per child for comprehensive care. 9 children, $30,600 monthly, $367,200 yearly. Nolan's actual spending on children, approximately $300 per child per month. Total $2,700 monthly, $32,400 yearly. The difference, $29,400 monthly, $334,800 yearly, times 5 years. Total embezzled, $1.6 million. Boats, vehicles, a timeshare in Cabo, restaurants, vacations, all purchased while children under his legal care counted the hours in dark closets and ate expired rice and lost the ability to speak because speaking was punished and silence was survival. But that was not all. Buried in archived emails from 2 years ago, hidden in a folder labeled Tax Documents, Body found a name. Diane Nolan, Garrett's wife, deceased. Death certificate listed cause of death as complications from pneumonia. She had died 2 months after Garrett took out a life insurance policy on her. $200,000 payout. Body pulled medical records. Public information from the hospital where Diane died. Admission notes, or C notes. Patient presented with sudden onset respiratory distress. No prior respiratory history. Rapid decline despite intervention. Attending physician, note buried deep in the file where someone who was not looking for it would never find it. Clinical presentation inconsistent with natural pneumonia progression. Recommended further investigation. Family declined autopsy. Garrett Nolan had declined the autopsy. Said it was too painful. Said he could not bear to put his wife through that indignity. Said he wanted to remember her as she was. 2 months later, he cashed the insurance check. 6 months after that, he bought the Ford F-150 Platinum Edition. The timeshare. The boat. Body showed the findings to Roach, to Cole, to Shepard. The room went quiet. The kind of quiet that comes when you realize the man you thought was a thief and an abuser might also be a killer. We can't prove murder. Shepard's voice was careful, measured, the lawyer in him overriding the fury, not without an autopsy. And it's been 2 years, but we can give it to the district attorney. Let them decide if they want to investigate further, which they did. By Tuesday evening, additional charges were filed against Garrett Nolan. Felony fraud, grand theft, and 9 counts of child endangerment, 9 counts of felony neglect, embezzlement of state funds, and the district attorney requested an exhumation order for Diane Nolan's remains. Testing for poisons, antifreeze showed up in toxicology even years later. Ethylene glycol, bone marrow preserved chemical signatures that soft tissue did not. Bail was set at $500,000. A man who had stolen over $1 million but spent it all on toys and debt could not make bail. Garrett Nolan would wait in county jail for trial, but while the legal system ground forward, something else was happening in the house on Oakwood Drive. Wednesday afternoon, Cole got a call from Shepard. They want to interview Wren, district attorney's office. They need her testimony on record for the criminal case. Cole looked at Wren. She was on his couch reading a children's novel Dutton had brought over. A story about a girl who saved a kingdom. She was sounding out words slowly, rebuilding speech skills, relearning how to use her voice after 6 months of being punished for having one. She's been through enough, I know, but her testimony seals the case. Without it, Voss will argue the recording was obtained illegally, that Wren was coached by adults with an agenda. Her voice, her words, her story on the record, that's what puts Nolan away for good. She deserves to be heard. On record. Officially. Cole sighed, the sound of a man caught between protecting his daughter from more pain and knowing that the pain had purpose. I'll ask her, but if she says no, it's no. I'm not forcing her. Understood. I'll be there either way. Cole knelt beside the couch. Wren looked up from her book. Blue eyes that had learned to read adults the way other children read picture books. Looking for danger. Looking for deception. Finding neither. Wren, the prosecutor wants to talk to you. Get your story on video. So when we go to trial, everyone knows exactly what happened. Not secondhand, not through reports, your words. Wren's hand tightened on the book. Will Mr. Nolan be there? No. Just you and me and Shepard and the prosecutor. Safe room. No pressure. Do I have to know? The word hung in the air. Simple. Absolute. The first time in 6 months that an adult had told Wren she did not have to do something and meant it. She was quiet. Thinking. Cole could see the wheels turning behind those blue eyes. The calculation that should not be necessary for a 7-year-old but was. Then Wren closed the book. Carefully. Marked her place. I want to do it. If I don't tell, he might hurt more kids. Other kids at other places. I don't want anyone else to be scared like I was. Cole felt pride swell in his chest. The fierce, aching kind that comes from watching someone you love choose courage when fear would be so much easier. Okay, we'll do it together. Thursday morning, district attorney's office, conference room with cameras set up, recording equipment tested. Everything documented and official. Wren sat between Cole and Shepard, small in the big chair, feet not touching the floor. Dog tags visible above the collar of her purple shirt. Across the table sat 8A Maren Caldwell, 36 years old, Crimes Against Children Unit, 16 years prosecuting abuse cases. She had seen everything, heard everything, thought nothing could surprise her anymore. But children still surprised her. Their resilience, their courage, the way they kept hoping even when every adult in their lives had failed them. Wren, I'm going to ask you some questions about your time at Riverside. If you need a break, just say so. Okay. Okay, how long were you at Riverside? 6 months. And when you arrived, could you talk normally? Yeah, my mom said I was a good talker. What happened to your talking after you got to Riverside? Wren's voice got smaller. Mr. Nolan said talking too much was bad. If we talked, we got in trouble. So I stopped talking. And then I forgot how. What kind of trouble? Quiet room. Or the spoon. Maren's pen moved steadily, recording every word, building the case that would ensure Garrett Nolan never touched another child. Can you tell me about the quiet room? It's a closet, really dark, no windows. He locks you in, sometimes for a long time. How long were you in there? The longest, 28 hours. I counted, 112 ABCs. Did you have food or water? Number bathroom. Wren looked down, ashamed, still. Even now, even after everything. No, Maren's voice was gentle. Wren, that's not your fault. You understand that. A small nod. Can you tell me about the food at Riverside? We didn't get much. Breakfast was only 3 days a week, lunch sometimes. Dinner was rice and beans, small bowls. If you asked for more, you got the spoon, the wooden spoon. Yes, Mr. Nolan kept it on the kitchen wall. Ren, why did you run away? The girl's voice broke. Not from weakness, from the weight of truth. Because I heard him talking on the phone. He said I was damaged. He said he was sending me to a worse place. He said nobody would ever want me. And I thought if I stay, I'll die there. Like Eli. Who's Eli? Ren looked at Cole. Something passed between them. A connection that had been forged in a Cole garage at dawn and tempered in every moment since. Cole's brother. He died in a place like Riverside. Cole couldn't save him. But Cole saved me. Maren Caldwell had prosecuted abuse cases for 16 years. She did not cry in interviews. Professional distance was survival in her line of work. But her voice was thick when she spoke. You saved yourself, Ren. You were brave enough to run, to record that conversation, to ask for help. That's the bravest thing I've ever heard a child do. Will Mr. Nolan go to jail for a very long time? Good. The interview lasted 45 minutes. When it was done, Maren stood and shook Ren's small hand. You're going to testify at trial eventually. It won't be for a few months. But when you do, you're going to help us make sure he never hurts another child. Can you do that? Yes, ma'am. Good girl. They walked out to Cole's truck. Ren was exhausted. The emotional labor of reliving trauma visible in the shadows under her eyes and the way her shoulders curved inward like she was trying to protect something fragile inside her chest. She climbed into the passenger seat, small in the big vehicle, buckled herself in. As they drove home through Portland streets washed in afternoon light, she asked quietly, Am I really going to stay with you forever if you want to? I want to. Cole's hands tightened on the steering wheel. 25 years of grief and guilt and loss converging on this one moment. The second chance he had not earned and did not deserve, but would spend every day for the rest of his life trying to be worthy of. Then yeah, Ren, forever. She was quiet for a block, 2 blocks, watching the city pass through the window. Houses and trees and people walking dogs and the ordinary world going about its ordinary business, unaware that inside this truck something extraordinary was happening. A family was being built from wreckage. Can I call you Dad? The question hit Cole like a physical blow. All the air leaving his lungs, all the carefully constructed walls he had built around his heart over 25 years crumbling like they were made of paper, and he had been a fool to think they could hold. Yeah, kid, you can call me Dad. 3 weeks crawled by. Cole completed everything the court required. Home study where a social worker inspected every room, opened every closet, asked uncomfortable questions about his capacity to care for a traumatized child. Background check that came back clean. Parenting classes at the community center where he was the only single man in a room full of couples and the only one with tattoos on his forearms and a leather vest in his truck. Psychiatric evaluation where a therapist probed his motivations. Asked about Eli, asked about guilt. Asked whether he was trying to save Ren or trying to save his brother through her. Cole answered honestly, both. And I know the difference. Everything came back the same. Suitable, stable, safe. Ren was changing too, gaining weight. 4 pounds in 3 weeks. Still thin, but less skeletal. Speaking more clearly. Seeing a speech therapist twice a week who was amazed at her progress. Starting to use full sentences. Still stuttered when scared. But less often now, she slept in the blue bedroom with the door open. Cole's room across the hall. Had nightmares sometimes. Woke up crying about the quiet room. But Cole was always there, sitting beside her bed, hand on her shoulder, grounding her, reminding her she was safe. She went to the clubhouse sometimes, met the brothers' families, played with their kids. Started understanding that family could look different than what she had imagined. Dutton's wife taught her to braid hair. Roach's daughter took her to the park. Dr. Tessa showed her basic first aid. Small pieces of normal life, building a foundation where there had been nothing but sand. But the trial loomed, scheduled and rescheduled 3 times while Philip Voss Nolan's defense attorney filed motion after motion, trying to suppress the recording, trying to exclude witness testimony, trying to delay until public attention faded and the system went back to not caring about children nobody wanted. Shepard called on a Friday evening. Voss filed a motion today. He's going to argue Ren has adjustment disorder. That the motorcycle man, the imaginary friend she told Cole about, proves she confuses fantasy with reality. He's going to try to destroy her credibility on the stand. Cole looked through the doorway at Ren. She was at the kitchen table doing homework. Math problems. Tongue poking out in concentration. 8 years old in 3 weeks. Getting stronger every day. She's the most honest person I've ever met. I know that. You know that. But a jury doesn't know that yet. Voss is good at what he does. He's going to try to make a 7-year-old girl doubt her own memory on a witness stand in front of strangers. And we need to be ready for that. Cole was quiet for a long time. She'll be ready. She's been ready since the night she ran. The trial began on a Tuesday in September. Summer had passed in a blur of adjustment and healing. Ren living in the blue bedroom with the door that never closed all the way because she needed to see the hallway light. Cole learning how to be a father to a child who flinched at sudden movements and hoarded granola bars in her dresser drawer because some part of her brain still believed the food might disappear. Learning together. Growing together. Building something that looked like family from materials nobody would have chosen, but that turned out to be stronger than anything assembled from a catalog. By September, Ren had gained 12 pounds, 54 now, still small for her age but healthier. Color in her cheeks, strength in her legs. Her hair had grown past her shoulders, blonde and thick, usually in braids she had learned to do herself from watching Dutton's wife. The stutter was almost gone. Speech therapy twice a week for 4 months had rebuilt what Riverside had broken. Words came easier now, full sentences, sometimes whole paragraphs of thought observations about the world that surprised Cole with their precision, their tenderness, their refusal to be cynical despite everything she had endured. She went to school, 2nd grade at Bridgeport Elementary, made friends slowly, cautiously, the way you build a house on ground that has betrayed you before, testing each friendship like testing ice on a pond, putting weight on it gradually, waiting to see if it would hold. A girl named Emma became her closest friend. Emma, who knew nothing about courtrooms and quiet rooms and the sound a wooden spoon makes against the back of a child's legs. Emma, who shared juice boxes at lunch and picked Ren first for kickball, and once told her that her braids were the prettiest in the whole class. Cole drove Ren every morning, picked her up every afternoon, helped with homework at the kitchen table while dinner cooked. Simple routines. Normal life. The kind Ren had never known, and Cole had stopped believing he deserved. But the trial loomed over everything like weather coming in from the coast. Visible on the horizon, getting closer every day. Tuesday, September 17th. Multnomah County Circuit Court. Judge Harold Fisk's courtroom was larger than Judge Whitmore's family court. More formal. Dark wood paneling, high ceilings, the seal of Oregon mounted behind the bench, flags on either side. The architecture of justice designed to intimidate. And it worked because Ren's hand tightened in Cole's as they walked through the doors, and she whispered that it looked like the kind of place where giants decided things. Jury selection had taken 3 days. 12 citizens, 7 women, 5 men. She's ranging from 24 to 68. Teacher, accountant, retired postal worker, barista, electrician, small business owner. People who had agreed to sit in judgment of a man accused of destroying children for profit. ADA Marin Caldwell stood for opening statements at 9 in the morning. 36 years old. Sharp suit, sharper mind. 16 years in the Crimes Against Children unit. Every case had left a mark, and she wore them the way soldiers wore medals. Invisible to everyone except those who knew where to look. Ladies and gentlemen, this case is about a man who saw vulnerable children and saw dollar signs. Garrett Nolan ran Riverside Children's Home for 8 years. During that time, he received over $3 million from the state of Oregon to provide comprehensive care for orphaned and foster children. Food, shelter, education, medical care, therapy, everything a child needs to survive and everything a child deserves to thrive. She walked along the jury box, made eye contact with each person, not performing, connecting, making each juror feel that this was personal because it was. Instead, he gave them starvation. He gave them violence. He gave them isolation and fear. And he pocketed the difference, $1.6 million over 5 years, while children under his care lost weight, lost the ability to speak, lost hope. She gestured toward Ren. Small girl in a blue dress, hands folded in her lap, dog tags hidden under the collar, but they're always there, the weight of a promise against her sternum. Wren Calloway is 7 years old. She weighed 42 pounds when she escaped Riverside by running barefoot through a freezing April night. She should have weighed 50. She should have been attending school. She should have been receiving speech therapy that the state paid for every single month. Instead, she was locked in a closet for 28 hours because she asked for more food. Marin's voice hardened, not louder, harder. The way steel gets harder, not bigger. You're going to hear from Wren. You're going to hear from medical experts who documented her injuries. You're going to hear from neighbors who saw her crying at windows and called police. And most damning of all, you're going to hear Garrett Nolan in his own words recorded without his knowledge, calling children revenue streams, admitting to pocketing funds meant for their care, describing a 7-year-old girl as too damaged to help. She walked back to the prosecution table. By the end of this trial, you will understand that Garrett Nolan did not just neglect these children. He systematically abused and exploited them for financial gain. And when you understand that you'll do what justice requires, you'll hold him accountable. Philip Voss stood for the defense. Mid-50s, expensive suit, silver hair, the kind of lawyer who made problems disappear through procedural technicalities and the weaponization of reasonable doubt. Ladies and gentlemen, you're going to hear a lot of emotional testimony, sad stories, difficult situations, but I ask you to remember something important. Garrett Nolan dedicated 8 years of his life to caring for the most vulnerable children in our community. He walked the same path Marin had, making his own eye contact, building his own credibility from different materials. Was Riverside perfect? No facility is. The budget was tight. Resources were limited. Mr. Nolan made difficult decisions every day about how to allocate funding. Sometimes those decisions meant cutting breakfast to 3 days a week. Sometimes it meant prioritizing shelter over therapy. These weren't crimes. These were the impossible choices people make when trying to care for damaged children with insufficient resources. The word landed like a stone in still water. Damaged children, the same phrase Nolan had used on the recording. Voss either did not notice or did not care. My client is not a monster. He's a man who did his best in an impossible situation. And when you hear all the evidence, you'll find that the state has not proven beyond a reasonable doubt that Garrett Nolan committed any crime. The prosecution built its case through the morning, witness by witness, brick by brick. Dr. Tessa Rourke took the stand first, walked the jury through Wren's medical examination. Weight, height, bruising, the welts on her legs, the destroyed feet. The ankle that a 7-year-old had run 6 miles on because staying was worse than broken bones. Photographs shown to the jury. Several looked away. One woman in the back row pressed her hand over her mouth. The retired postal worker in seat 3 stared at the images of Wren's legs with an expression that suggested he had already made up his mind, and the rest of the trial was formality. Voss cross-examined, couldn't dispute medical facts, could only try to plant seeds of alternative explanation. Couldn't these injuries have resulted from normal childhood activities? Falls, playground accidents. The welts were linear, parallel, uniform spacing. That is not consistent with falls. Couldn't the speech delay be developmental? Not when there's documented normal development followed by sudden regression. That indicates environmental cause. Tessa's voice was steady, professional, unshakable. The voice of a woman who had examined hundreds of abused children and knew exactly what she was looking at and would not let a man in an expensive suit convince her otherwise. Mrs. Alma Pruitt took the stand next. Navy pantsuit, hands shaking but voice clear. I saw Wren at that window so many times, pressed against the glass, crying. 30 feet from my kitchen, I called police twice. They came. They looked around. They left. Said everything was fine. She looked at the jury, directly, the way a woman looks at people when she has decided that honesty is more important than dignity. I was a coward. I saw the signs, and I didn't do enough. I should have broken down that door. I should have called every single day. I should have made so much noise that somebody had to listen. But I was scared of overstepping, scared of being wrong. And Wren suffered because People like me saw the signs and chose comfort over courage. Dr. Holloway testified. Officer Lacey testified. Joanna Vick from CPS testified her career already in ruins, her conscience requiring this final act of accountability. I saw thin children. I saw fear in their eyes. Nolan had explanations for everything, and I accepted them. I was carrying 43 active cases, and I prioritized paperwork over instinct. I wrote reports that said the facility meets standards. I lied. Not deliberately, but functionally. I told the system what it wanted to hear instead of what those children needed me to say. Body Sims testified about the recording, chain of custody, metadata verification, certification that the audio was authentic and unaltered. Then Marin played it for the jury. The courtroom fell silent, Nolan's voice filling the space. Smooth, professional, describing children as revenue streams, admitting to cutting meals, pocketing therapy funds, calling Wren too damaged to help. Several jurors looked at Nolan. He sat at the defense table in his khakis and button-down, wire-rimmed glasses, the same pleasant face that had fooled police and social workers and doctors and neighbors for 8 years. But the mask did not work in a courtroom where his own voice had just called a starving child beautiful revenue. The financial expert testified last before Wren. Forensic accountant who had spent 3 months following the money. State funding to Riverside totaled $3.2 million over 8 years. Actual expenditures on childcare totaled $1.6 million. The difference, $1.6 million, went to personal accounts controlled by Garrett Nolan. Vehicles, a boat, a timeshare, personal travel, entertainment, none of it related to facility operations or child welfare. By the afternoon, the prosecution's case was a wall of evidence so solid that Voss's only remaining strategy was to attack the one witness who could not be cross-referenced or fact-checked by documents alone. Wren, Wednesday morning. She wore the blue dress again, hair braided, dog tags hidden under the collar, but she had touched them 17 times since waking up, counting each time, each touch a child reaching for the physical proof that someone had promised to protect her. The courtroom was packed, every seat filled, media in the back rows, sketch artists drawing because cameras were not allowed in Judge Fisk's courtroom. The weight of public attention focused on one small girl who was about to do the hardest thing she had ever done, and she had already done things that would have broken most adults. Marin approached the witness stand after Wren was sworn in, hand on a Bible that was bigger than her forearm. Promised to tell the truth, delivered in a voice that did not waver because Wren Calloway had been telling the truth for months and nobody had listened. And now they were going to listen whether they wanted to or not. Wren, how old are you? 7, almost 8. Where do you live now? With my dad. Cole, how long have you lived with him? 5 months. Before that, where did you live? Riverside Children's Home. Marin kept her voice gentle, leading Wren through the story the way you lead someone through a dark room. One step at a time, hand extended, trust required. Wren told it, all of it, the meals that were not enough, the wooden spoon on the kitchen wall, the quiet room where 28 hours passed in darkness measured by alphabet songs because there was no other way to know if time was moving or if it had stopped entirely, and she would be in that closet forever. She told it clearly, steadily, the stutter surfacing only once when she described the sound the lock made from the outside. A click, small, final. Then it was Voss's turn. He stood slowly, adjusted his tie, and approached the witness stand with a smile that was designed to look reassuring and instead looked like something a child would recognize as dangerous. Because children who have been hurt by smiling adults learn to read smiles the way other people read warning signs. Hello, Wren. Wren did not respond, just watched him. Wren, you said you heard Mr. Nolan on the phone. How did you hear that conversation? The air vent goes from my room to his office, and you recorded it without telling him. Yes. Do you know that recording someone without their permission is against the rules? I didn't know. I just wanted someone to believe me. But you've made up things before, haven't you? You told Mr. Harlan about an imaginary friend, the motorcycle man, someone you invented in your head. He was in my dreams to help me feel better. So you imagined someone who would rescue you, someone who wasn't real. How do we know you didn't imagine other things too? Wren's eyes filled with tears, the first cracks in her armor. It wasn't imaginary. It happened. But you have trouble sometimes, don't you? Telling the difference between what's real and what you wish were real. You have nightmares. You see things that aren't there. You talk to yourself sometimes. Objection, badgering the witness. Sustained. Mr. Voss, rephrase. Voss softened his voice, which was worse, because the soft voice was the voice Nolan had used. The concerned voice. The voice that said, trust me while it locked closet doors. Wren, isn't it possible that you misunderstood what you heard? That Mr. Nolan was trying to help you and you got confused? No. He was mean. He hurt us. But you've been hurt before. Your mother died. That must have been very painful. Maybe you're confused about who hurt you and when. I'm not confused. According to these records, you were seeing a therapist before Riverside, diagnosed with adjustment disorder, recommended for ongoing therapy. Did that therapy continue at Riverside? Wren shook her head. Mister Nolan says that's because you refused to participate. You wouldn't talk to the therapist. Is that true? I couldn't talk anymore. He punished us for talking. Or maybe you stopped talking because of grief, because of trauma from your mother's death, not because of anything Mr. Nolan did. Wren was crying, full tears, hands gripping the arms of the witness chair. He hurt me. He locked me up. I'm not lying. I'm not saying you're lying, Wren. I'm saying you might be confused. Traumatized children often mix up memories, combine different events, create stories that feel true but aren't quite accurate. Objection. The witness is 7 years old and clearly in distress. I'm entitled to cross-examination, Your Honor. You've made your point, Mr. Voss. Move on. But Voss pressed. One more question, Your Honor. Wren, when you ran away, you said you were looking for someone with a motorcycle, someone like your imaginary friend. Doesn't that prove you were confused about what's real? Wren's voice came out as a sob. I just wanted help. I was scared. No further questions. Recess. 15 minutes. Cole was at the witness stand before anyone could stop him. Lifted Wren down. She clung to him, face buried in his shoulder, crying with the particular fury of a child who has told the truth and been told the truth is not good enough. He's mean. He doesn't believe me. I believe you. The jury believes you. He's just trying to make them doubt. That's all he has. I can't do this. Yes, you can, because you're the bravest person I know. They went to the witness room. Cole sat on the floor with Wren in his lap. Let her cry. Did not tell her to stop. Did not tell her it was okay. Because it was not okay. None of this was okay. A 7-year-old should not have to convince 12 strangers that her pain was real. Dutton came in, knelt beside them. This man who had known Eli, who had carried his own guilt out for 25 years, who had told an 18-year-old to trust the system and then watch the system kill a child. Wren, can I tell you something? She nodded against Cole's shoulder. When I came back from the Gulf War, I couldn't talk about what I saw. People asked questions and I just shut down. Couldn't find the words. And some people said I was confused. Said I was making up stories. Said trauma made me unreliable. He touched her shoulder. Gentle. The touch of a man who understood that the greatest act of strength was sometimes the smallest gesture of tenderness. But I knew what I saw. I knew what was real. And eventually enough people believed me that the truth came out. You know what you experienced, Wren? You know what's real. That lawyer can't change that. He can only try to make other people doubt you. But you don't have to doubt yourself. Wren pulled back. Looked at Dutton with red eyes. What if they don't believe me anyway? Then we keep fighting. We don't stop just because one man asked mean questions. Marin appeared in the doorway, professional concern on her face. Wren, you don't have to go back out there. We have enough evidence without your testimony. The recording alone, combined with the medical reports and financial records, gives us a strong case. You've already done more than anyone could ask. Wren was quiet, thinking. Cole could see her weighing it, the fear of going back on that stand against the knowledge of what silence meant, what it had always meant. Adults looking away, children staying quiet, the system grinding forward and grinding children underneath. She shook her head. I want to finish. Other kids need to know it's okay to tell the truth. Even when it's hard, even when someone tries to make you feel crazy for telling it. Cole looked at his daughter, 7 years old, 46 pounds of courage and scar tissue and stubborn, furious hope. You sure? She nodded. They walked back into the courtroom, every eye on them. 47 brothers in the gallery. Roach's jaw set, Dutton's hands clasped, Mrs. Pruitt clutching her handkerchief. Wren climbed back into the witness chair. Smaller than ever in that big seat, but her spine was straight, her hands were still. She was not gripping the armrests anymore. Judge Fisk looked at her carefully. Miss Calloway, are you ready to continue? Yes, sir. Mr. Voss, keep it brief. Voss stood, but something had changed. He could feel it. The room had shifted while they were gone. The jury was looking at Wren differently, not with pity, with respect. The respect you give someone who has been knocked down and gotten back up and is looking you in the eye and daring you to try again. Wren, I'll ask you one more time. Is it possible you're mistaken about what happened at Riverside Number? How can you be so certain? Wren leaned forward slightly. Not much, an inch. But in a courtroom, an inch was a mile. Because I have scars. She pulled up her sleeve, slowly, deliberately, showing the jury marks that were not in any medical report, not in any affidavit, not in any document that Voss had prepared to challenge. Circular marks on her forearm, faded but unmistakable to anyone who had ever seen what a cigarette did to skin. Cigarette burns. From when I tried to take food from the locked pantry, Mr. Nolan said I needed to learn. Several jurors gasped. The retired postal worker closed his eyes. The teacher in seat 7 pressed both hands flat on the jury rail like she needed to hold on to something solid. Voss opened his mouth. Wren was not finished. I counted 28 hours in the quiet room. 112 ABC songs. You don't count like that if you're confused. You count like that because counting is the only thing that tells you time is still moving and you're still alive. Her voice was steady now, no stutter, no tears, just truth. I have the recording, his voice, his words, calling me a revenue stream. You can't imagine that. Nobody imagines being called a revenue stream. She looked at Voss directly. A 7-year-old girl looking at a man 3 times her age and 7 times her size and not flinching. And I ran 6 miles on a broken ankle in 40-degree weather with bleeding feet. Nobody runs like that if they're confused about being safe. You run like that when you know exactly how dangerous the place you're leaving is. And you'd rather die in the cold than spend one more night there. Silence. Absolute. The kind of silence that falls in a courtroom when something has happened that cannot be argued or spun or explained away. When truth has spoken in a voice so clear that even the architecture of justice seems to lean in and listen. Voss sat down. No further questions. Marin stood for redirect, her voice barely above a whisper. The courtroom so quiet that a whisper carried to every corner. Wren, why didn't you tell anyone about the cigarette burns before? Because I was ashamed. I thought it was my fault for trying to take food. That I deserved it. It was not your fault. You understand that now, my dad told me. It's never okay for adults to hurt kids. No matter what the kid did, no matter what. One final question. Are you glad you told the truth today? Even though it was hard, yes. Because if I don't tell Mr. Nolan, might hurt more kids somewhere else. And I don't want anyone to be scared like I was. I don't want anyone to count ABCs in the dark. Nebahoy. Further questions, Your Honor. Closing arguments came Friday morning. Voss tried, painted Nolan as an overwhelmed administrator, suggested Wren's testimony was compromised by trauma, argued reasonable doubt existed about criminal intent. Marin destroyed him. She replayed the recording one final time. Let the jury hear Nolan laugh about pocketing therapy funds, calling children revenue streams, describing Wren as too damaged to help. This is not a man overwhelmed by circumstances. This is a man who saw vulnerable children and saw profit, who systematically starved, beat, and exploited them for 8 years, who caused harm beyond calculation to dozens of children for $1.6 million. She walked along the jury box one final time. Wren Calloway ran 6 miles on bleeding feet and a sprained ankle. 7 years old, 42 pounds, running through a freezing night because staying was worse than anything she might face out there. Let that sink in. A child chose unknown danger over the care this man was paid to provide. She pointed at Nolan. He called her damaged. But she's not damaged. She's a survivor. She's brave, she's strong, and she saved herself. And now you have the power to make sure he never damages another child. Do what justice requires. The jury deliberated for 1 hour and 47 minutes. Guilty on all 18 counts. Felony child endangerment, 9 counts. Guilty. Felony neglect, 9 counts. Guilty. Embezzlement of state funds, guilty. Grand theft, guilty. Fraud, guilty. Nolan sat frozen as each verdict was read, face pale, hands shaking, the pleasant smile gone. Nothing left but the face underneath, and the face underneath was small and ordinary and afraid. Sentencing came 3 weeks later. Same courtroom, same judge. But this time there was an additional charge. Diane Nolan's body had been exhumed in August. Forensic analysis of bone marrow revealed traces of ethylene glycol, antifreeze, administered in small doses over several months, enough to cause symptoms mimicking pneumonia, enough to kill without leaving obvious evidence in the standard autopsy, which was why Nolan had made sure there was no autopsy at all. The medical examiner's report concluded homicide by poisoning. Additional charge filed, first-degree murder. Judge Fisk looked at Garrett Nolan standing before the bench. Mr. Nolan, you have been convicted by a jury of your peers on 18 counts of child abuse, neglect, and financial fraud. Additionally, you face murder charges for the death of your wife, Diane Nolan. For the child abuse and fraud convictions, I sentence you to 15 years in state prison with no possibility of parole for 10 years. You will pay full restitution to the state of Oregon in the amount of $1.6 million. You are permanently prohibited from working with children in any capacity. He paused. The murder trial will proceed separately. But Mr. Nolan, understand this. You will never leave prison. Whether you die there after 15 years or after a life sentence for murder, you will spend your remaining days knowing that your crimes have been seen, that the children you harmed have been heard, that a 7-year-old girl with more courage than you will ever possess brought you down with a broken phone and the truth. Nolan was led away in handcuffs, did not look at the courtroom, did not look at Wren, just kept his eyes forward as officers escorted him through the side door and out of the story he had written for himself and into the one that Wren had written for him. Wren did not cheer, did not celebrate. She cried quietly in Cole's arms. "What's wrong, kid? We won." Her voice was muffled against his shoulder. "I'm sad for Mrs. Nolan. She tried to help us. I remember her. She brought cookies once and Mr. Nolan yelled at her for wasting money. And then she died. And he killed her." Cole held her tighter. "Yeah, that's worth crying about." 6 months later, on a Tuesday in March, they returned to Judge Whitmore's courtroom for the final time. Adoption day. Wren was 8 now, almost 58 pounds, healthy weight, growing, thriving. She had been in therapy every week since the trial, working through trauma, learning coping skills, learning that not every closed door was a locked closet, and not every raised voice meant the spoon was coming off the wall. Still had nightmares sometimes, but less frequently. And Cole was always there, always in the hallway, always awake, always ready. School was going well. 3rd grade now, skipped ahead because she was catching up fast on everything Riverside had stolen from her. Had Emma, had other friends, had a life that looked from the outside like any other 8-year-old's life, and that ordinariness was the most extraordinary gift anyone had ever given her. The clubhouse had become a second home. Roach's daughter was like a big sister. Dutton and his wife were grandparents in everything but name. The brothers were uncles. Dr. Tessa was the aunt who always had bandages and candy in her bag. A whole extended family built from choice instead of blood. 47 men and their families who had decided that one small girl was worth showing up for and had never stopped showing up since. All 47 brothers came to the adoption hearing, plus wives, girlfriends, children. Mrs. Pruitt in her navy pantsuit, Dr. Holloway, Officer Lacey, Joanna Vick, who had left CPS to work for a nonprofit advocacy group fighting for children in the system. People who had been part of Wren's story, who had failed and then fought to make it right. Judge Whitmore smiled when she saw the packed courtroom. "Mr. Harlan, you certainly know how to fill a room." Cole stood with Wren beside him. She wore a white dress Dutton's wife had sewn by hand, hair in perfect braids. Dog tags visible around her neck because this was a day for remembering promises kept. Your Honor, when family shows up, you make room. Judge Whitmore reviewed the final adoption paperwork. 6 months of home visits, all positive. Continued therapy, ongoing support system. Everything in order. She looked at Wren. Miss Calloway, do you understand what adoption means? Yes, ma'am. It means Cole becomes my forever dad. Legal and everything. That's right. Do you want Cole to be your forever dad? Wren reached into the pocket of her white dress and pulled out the dog tags. The ones Cole had put around her neck that first morning in his garage. 11 months ago. A lifetime ago. She held them out to him. You told me to hold these until you brought me home safe. You brought me home. Like you promised, Cole took the tags, hands shaking, put them back around his own neck where they had lived for 18 years before Wren and would live for the rest of his life after. Yeah, kid, we're both home now. Judge Whitmore's voice was thick. By the power vested in me by the state of Oregon, I hereby grant the final adoption decree. Wren Calloway is now legally Wren Harlan. Congratulations to you both. The gavel came down. The courtroom erupted. 47 bikers on their feet, some crying openly, Dutton sobbing without shame, Roach clapping so hard it echoed off the walls, Mrs. Pruitt dabbing her eyes with a handkerchief that was already soaked through. Wren hugged Cole. Hard. I got a forever family. Yeah, kid, you do. 2 weeks later, Wren came to Cole with an idea. She was sitting at the kitchen table after dinner. Homework finished, dishes done, the ordinary rhythms of a life she was still learning to trust. Dad, we should help other kids, like the brothers helped me. What do you mean, like a phone number? Kids who are scared can call, and we'll help them. Because when I was at Riverside, I didn't know who to call. Teachers didn't believe me. Police didn't believe me. Doctors didn't believe me. But if there was a number, and the person who answered was someone who understood someone who'd been there, maybe kids wouldn't have to run barefoot in the cold to find help. Maybe help could come to them. Cole looked at his daughter, 8 years old and thinking about other people's pain, wanting to turn her own suffering into something that meant more than just survival. Wanting to make sure that the worst thing that ever happened to her became the reason the worst thing never happened to someone else. That's a good idea, Wren. Let's talk to Roach. They met at the clubhouse that Saturday. Wren presented her plan to the full chapter. Standing on a chair so everyone could see her. No stutter, no fear, just the clear, steady voice of a child who had learned that speaking up was worth the cost. Kids are scared to tell adults about bad things because adults don't always believe them. I told 4 adults and nobody listened. But maybe they'd call a number if they knew the person on the other end would believe them. Someone who wouldn't just say they'd look into it and then forget. Roach listened carefully, his massive frame still in his chair, expression unreadable. What would we call it, Wren thought, tilted her head the way she did when she was working through something important. Angels watch, because you're angels on motorcycles, and you watch out for people. The vote was unanimous, 47 hands, not a moment's hesitation. Angels Watch launched 1 month later. Phone number distributed to schools, shelters, hospitals, pediatric clinics, anywhere a child in trouble might see it. Staffed around the clock by rotating brothers and trained volunteers. Crisis counselors on call. Direct lines to police, CPS, and attorneys who would actually fight. The first call came 3 weeks after launch. Wren was at the clubhouse doing homework when the phone rang. She looked at Roach. He nodded. She picked up. Angels Watch. This is Wren. A small voice on the other end. A girl, maybe 9 or 10, shared in the particular way that only children who have learned to be quiet about their fear can be scared. Is this the place that helps kids? Yes. What's your name? The girl hesitated. The hesitation of someone deciding whether to trust. Whether this time would be different from all the other times. Hadley. Hi, Hadley. I'm Wren. I was where you are once. Tell me what's happening. 20 minutes later, Roach and 3 brothers were rolling to an address in Northeast Portland. Hadley Briggs, 10 years old. Foster placement gone wrong. Foster father drinking, getting violent. Hadley had seen the Angels Watch number on a flyer at school. She had carried it in her pocket for a week, folded and refolded until the creases were soft as fabric, waiting for the courage to call. She called. They came. Within 2 hours, Hadley was safe. Within 3 months, Angel's Watch had helped 14 children. Runaways, abuse victims, kids in situations where adults had failed them. Word spread the way it always does among children who share a particular kind of knowledge. Foster kids telling other foster kids. School counselors keeping cards in their desks. Nurses in emergency rooms slipping phone numbers to children with suspicious injuries. The program expanded. Seattle chapter started their own version. Then Sacramento, Phoenix, Denver. Anywhere Hell's Angels had a presence, Angels Watch followed. Within a year, 37 cities across 11 states had active programs. Hundreds of kids helped, dozens of abusers arrested, systems forced to pay attention because 47 men on motorcycles and one 8-year-old girl made noise that could not be ignored. 1 year after Cole found Ren in his garage, they rode together to a place neither had visited in months. Pine Valley Children's Home. Abandoned now. Building condemned. Windows broken. Grass overgrown. The place where Eli had died 26 years ago. The place where the system had failed a 7-year-old boy the same way it had tried to fail a 7-year-old girl, except the girl had run. They parked at the fence. Cole helped Ren off the back of the bike. She had been practicing, getting comfortable with the noise and the speed and the wind, getting ready for the day she would be old enough to ride her own. They walked to the gate. Someone had placed flowers there over the years, small memorials to children who had suffered, who had died, who had been forgotten by everyone except the people who loved them. Ren held Cole's hand. Tell me about Eli. So Cole told. All of it, not the sanitized version, not the version that protected him from his own failures. The truth. How Eli had been 7 when their parents died. How Cole had been 18, too young for custody. How Eli had gone to Pine Valley because that was what the system did with orphans. How Cole had visited every week, seen his brother getting thinner, quieter, more afraid. How Cole had tried to get custody and been denied. Tried to report abuse and been dismissed. How Eli had died from injuries sustained during punishment. Locked in a closet for crying. Just like Ren. Just like too many others. I couldn't save him. I was too young, too powerless. And I've carried that for 26 years. Ren was quiet for a long time, holding his hand, looking at the building where a boy she had never met had lived and died and become the reason she was standing here alive. Then she said something that broke Cole open in the best possible way. The way sunrise breaks open a night that has lasted too long. Eli's not sad anymore, Dad. He sent me to you so you could save me, and so I could save you. Cole knelt beside his daughter, this brave, healing, extraordinary girl who had become his second chance and his redemption and his proof that the world, for all its cruelty, still contained the possibility of grace. Yeah, kid, I think you're right. They stood there for a while. Then Ren picked wildflowers from the overgrown grass, tied them with a ribbon from her hair, placed them at the gate. Thank you for sending me your brother Eli. He's a good dad. The sun was setting when they rode home, Cole's Harley rumbling through Portland streets. Ren pressed against his back, arms wrapped around his waist, dog tags clinking against his chest. Home was a blue bedroom with an open door, a kitchen table covered with homework, a living room full of brothers who showed up for movie nights, a garage with motorcycles and tools, and the memory of a morning when everything changed. Home was a daughter who had chosen him as much as he had chosen her, who had run through the cold, seeking safety, and found family instead. That night, Ren came to Cole's room before bed, something she did sometimes when the nightmares felt close. Dad, can I ask you something? Always. Do you still dream about Eli sometimes? But they're different now. Less sad. He's happy in them. And he's with you. She climbed onto the bed beside him, small in her pajamas, 8 years old and still learning that bedtime did not mean being locked away. Tell me a story about when you were brave. So Cole told her about Iraq, about the times he had been scared, but did the right thing anyway. About the Marines who became brothers. About coming home and finding new brothers. About the day he opened his garage and found the bravest person he had ever met sleeping on his motorcycle. I wasn't brave, I was just scared. Bravery is being scared and doing it anyway. You ran. You recorded proof when nobody would believe you. You testified when that lawyer tried to break you. You started Angels Watch so other kids wouldn't be alone. That's brave, Wren. That's the definition of it. She was quiet, thinking. Are you glad I found you? Cole pulled her close. Every single day, she fell asleep there. Cole carried her back to the blue bedroom, tucked her in, made sure the nightlight was on and the door was open, stood in the doorway watching her breathe. His phone buzzed. Text from Roach. Another call came in. Boy, 7 years old, Seattle, needs help. Cole looked at Wren sleeping peacefully, thought about Eli, thought about all the children still waiting for someone to listen. He texted back, I'll make some calls. Let's get them safe. Because that was what they did now, what they would always do. Show up for kids nobody else wanted. Listen when others dismissed. Fight when the system failed. It would not bring Eli back. Would not erase 26 years of guilt. But it meant Eli's death had purpose. Meant Wren's suffering had sparked something bigger than one rescue. Meant broken people could heal by helping others heal. Cole lay down. For the first time in 26 years, he fell asleep without dreaming of failure. Instead, he dreamed of Wren learning to ride her own motorcycle someday, of Angel's Watch growing to every state, of a world where children who needed help could call a number and someone would come. He dreamed of Eli standing beside Wren, both of them smiling, both of them safe. And when he woke the next morning to the sound of his daughter in the kitchen, attempting pancakes with more enthusiasm than skill, he walked in and found flour on the counter, an eggshell in the batter, and Wren grinning at him like the morning itself was a gift she had not expected to receive. Best pancakes ever, kid. You're lying. But thanks, Dad, he smiled, and meant it. For the first time in 26 years, the weight on his chest felt lighter. Not gone. Never gone. But bearable. Because he finally understood what Wren had told him at Eli's memorial. Eli had not sent her to be saved. He had sent her so they could save each other. And from that saving, from that single act of a terrified girl choosing a stranger's motorcycle over one more night of darkness, a movement had grown that would ripple across the country and remind every child hiding in every quiet room in every city in America that they were not alone, that somewhere a phone was ringing and someone who understood was picking up.